the letter that changed everything. For Leonard McKinney, life was simple. He worked with his hands, cherished his family, and held fast to the one thing his grandfather had sworn never to let go: their land. It wasn't just a plot of dirt, it was his legacy, his history, and his anchor. That anchor was ripped away on a warm Thursday morning in May. Sitting at his kitchen table in Round Rock, Texas, he opened a letter that turned his world upside down. It wasn't a bill or an advertisement. It was an eviction notice. The letter, stamped with the seal of the Clearwater Meadows Homeowners Association, a new upscale subdivision that had sprung up right next to his property, informed him he had 60 days to vacate. According to them, the land under his own feet was no longer his. It was now designated as community land for their 156 newly built homes. His hands shook. He wasn't a man easily rattled, but this was an attack on everything he held dear. He immediately called his younger sister, Denise. "They're trying to put me off our land," he said, his voice tight. "They say I'm squatting." Denise's response was swift and fierce. "That can't be right. Daddy paid those taxes year after year. Grandpa made sure no one could ever take it from us." Leonard remembered his grandfather Ezekiel's words, spoken on that very porch decades ago. "This land has claws, son. It'll hold on if you hold on. Don't you ever let them trick you out of it." But now it seemed they weren't trying to trick him. They were telling him to leave. The discovery. That night, a deep unease settled over Leonard. He couldn't sleep, the weight of the eviction notice feeling like a physical presence. By sunrise, Denise was back, carrying an old shoebox she'd pulled from the back of their mother's closet. Inside, beneath faded photographs and old receipts, lay their salvation: the original deed. Handwritten in 1924 by Ezekiel McKinney, it contained a powerful clause. It stated that the land was to remain in McKinney ownership forever, and if it was ever taken, sold, or developed without the written consent of his descendants, it would legally and automatically revert back to the family. Leonard exhaled sharply. His grandfather hadn't just been stubborn, he'd been brilliantly prescient. He had seen this day coming and built a legal fortress a century in advance. The battle lines are drawn. Armed with the deed, Leonard decided to confront the HOA directly at their next meeting. The atmosphere in the gleaming new clubhouse was icy. Homeowners, young families, retirees watched him with a mixture of pity and hostility. The HOA president, a polished man named Bradley Kincaid, dismissed Leonard's claims. "Our records show this land was legally acquired," he stated smoothly. "Your document is a historical relic. It doesn't apply here." But Leonard stood firm. He held the deed high for all to see. "You didn't have this. My grandfather wrote it in 1924. You built on our land without our consent. That's your error, not mine." The room erupted into chaos. Some shouted in support, others in fear. A young mother stood, her voice trembling. "If he's telling the truth, what happens to us? Do we lose our homes?" Bradley tried to calm them, but the seed of doubt had been planted. Leonard had drawn a line in the sand. Finding an ally. Leonard knew he couldn't fight this alone. After several lawyers turned him down, too intimidated by the deep pockets of the HOA and developers, Denise suggested they call Carla Jennings, a tough attorney from Austin known for taking on powerful interests. In her modest office, Carla studied the old deed, her eyebrows rising in astonishment. "This is remarkable," she said. "This reversion clause is ironclad. If this holds up, the land is yours, every inch of it." She warned him the fight would be long, public, and ugly. The HOA would paint him as a greedy villain trying to throw families into the street. "Are you ready for that?" she asked. Leonard thought of his grandfather's struggle, his father's sacrifices. He looked Carla in the eye and said, "I'm ready." The war of words. Once the lawsuit was filed, the community fractured. The HOA newsletter painted Leonard as a selfish squatter. Flyers appeared in mailboxes urging residents to stop McKinney's land grab. Some neighbors confronted him angrily. "You're going to make my kids homeless," one father pleaded, his face etched with desperation. Leonard's heart ached. "I don't want your home," he explained patiently. "I want the truth. The developers lied to you just like they tried to lie to me. We should be on the same side." Not all interactions were hostile. Some homeowners, like Patricia Lowell, began to question the official story. She and others started digging and found irregularities in their own closing documents, mismatched signatures, rushed approvals. The developer's house of cards was beginning to wobble. The verdict. The trial was a grueling test of endurance. In the courtroom, Carla wove a powerful narrative not of greed, but of legacy. She spoke of Ezekiel's foresight, of a family's generations-long struggle to hold on to what was theirs. The HOA's lawyers argued for stability for the modern families who had invested their lives in the community. They called the deed a relic of the past. But the truth was too powerful to ignore. After hours of deliberation, the jury returned with a verdict. The courtroom fell silent. The forewoman handed the slip to the judge. "We, the jury, find in favor of the plaintiff, Mr. Leonard McKinney." The room exploded. Denise burst into tears. Leonard sat frozen, the weight of the battle finally lifting. The court had recognized the validity of his grandfather's century-old deed. The land was his, a victory with a cost. The victory was not without its complications. While Leonard was hailed as a hero by some, others still saw him as the source of their uncertainty. His goal, however, was never to evict families. "The developers lied to all of us," he told the swarming reporters. "I don't want anyone out on the street. I want respect for my family's history and fairness for yours." The fight shifted from ownership to damages and solutions. The state attorney general launched an investigation into the developers' practices. Leonard began speaking at schools, teaching a new generation the importance of knowing their history and standing up for their rights. The true legacy won. Quiet evening, Leonard walked the land, his hand resting on the bark of the old oak tree his grandfather had once leaned against. He looked at the subdivision, at the families living their lives. He felt peace, not because the struggle was over, but because he had honored the promise. He had held on, just as his grandfather had instructed. The lesson of Leonard McKinney's story is not about winning a legal battle. It is about the enduring power of truth and the courage to defend it. It is a reminder that history is not just something we read about. It is something we must actively protect, a legacy we must fight to preserve for those who will come after us. Sometimes the most powerful weapon against injustice is a single stubborn signature from the past, waiting for the right person to give it a voice.